Hello, hello. Welcome to A Dreamer's Experience Conquer the Chaos. My name is Sean Laurie, and as a father and and an entrepreneur, I want to give you guys different insights and tools each week from either myself, my wife, or others that will not only help you as an individual, but also as a parent conquer the chaos.
And hey guys, I'm Tiffany Lowry and I co host alongside my husband. I do wear many hats, and the two that I'm the most proud of is being a mother and a wife. We've had many chaotic moments as a family, but have somehow always managed to conquer the chaos. And that's why I'm excited to be here with you guys to share part of our journey.
Yes, guys, and like always, make sure you subscribe, like, um, tell a friend. Go to also conquerthechaos.net if you want to be part of the No Perfect Father membership that I have, or if you just need some more personal one-on-one coaching. Also be a part of just the community of the No Perfect Parent on Facebook as well. Just where we can kind of vent and have a good time. So now that that's out the way, guys, this is part 2. Part two. I wanted to cut. I had to cut Daniel off a little bit short, just because I know how some of you guys are. Hey, I'm the same way. I'm talking about y'all, but I'm the same way. So part 2. How are you doing, sir? Even though you can see me.
I'm doing good, doing good. This is fun. This is exciting, and I just want to put a plug in there too. I'm
Yeah,
part of the perfect parent or no perfect parent, right?
yeah,
Man, it's been a blessing.
yeah,
If you're thinking about it, hop in, man. Get
yeah.
on board. It's life changing. My man Sean is doing his thing. I appreciate you,
Appreciate it.
brother, and you're changing lives, changing my lives. I'm spreading the word out, and it's great, man. It's a good place to talk about what fathers don't talk about,
Yeah,
and and
yeah,
sometimes as men we hold in a lot of things or we do things because we think that's how we're supposed to do it because of our upbringing. But I tell you, man, this is a good place to be transparent and for us to express those things. So hop in,
yeah.
man. Don't don't
Appreciate it.
don't man,
Appreciate it.
don't
Yeah,
miss the
yeah.
train. Don't miss the train. So
Yeah,
definitely hop in.
yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, man. Oh, and now that he reminded me, also, guys, real quick for the fathers, Dad Cave this Saturday coming up. This or no, actually, it'll be part 2. So y'all
Yeah.
won't y'all won't know this. It already happened. My fault.
That's what I
Whatever.
want. Final
Hopefully y'all
form
was part
last
of it.
week.
That's hopefully y'all was part of it. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Hopefully y'all was part of it.
There we
But
go.
so to ask about, or no, I'm sorry, we was talking about um
Support system.
the support system, and so it had me thinking as well. Last time we was talking about it with your family, I know you said your family has adopted and foster family, right? Like different things like that. Well, how was your parents, how did they receive, um because a lot of times, right, as parents, they're like, hey, no, Daniel, you should have quote unquote your own kids, right? Like they want to see a mini you. So how was that? Like, did they accept that? Like how was that dynamic? Or were they just like, oh yeah, that's fine? Like how did they receive that?
Yeah, so that's it. That's actually interesting because there's kind of two dynamics behind it, right? There's the parent side of it of being supportive of my decision, but at the same time, there's that other side of the parent of, well, you need to get married, have your kids, and have a house, and XYZ. Do those things first before this. But they didn't express that, and that's what I appreciate that out of them. It's you can tell that it's in the back of their heads, but they never
Yeah,
said anything about it because at the end of the day, they were more supportive. And
Mm.
so my dad, as my dad, his thing was always straight to the point of, well, you got to make sure that you get prayed up, make sure this, and make sure this is a tough, decision, which which I appreciate because he understands the level of commitment this takes, but
yeah,
also that you're going to be tapping into lives that there's things that I haven't experienced in my life that these kids, their trauma that they've gone through, that I'm not, I'm don't know how to, parent that. So
yeah,
he understood that. He understood that, and he prepared me in a way of expressing those things and saying, "Hey, be prepared for these things mentally, because you really can't be prepared until you go head to head with it."
yeah,
And when I did went head to head with it, he was there to say, I was preparing you for this, and this is now with this season, this is how you get through it. And so for them to be receptive and be supportive really helped me make that decision to say, yeah, this is what I want to do. Because, at the end of the day, you do want your parents, a decision. But then at the end of the day, too, is at the same time, it's what God puts on your heart. And so you really got to listen to God, and you got to really listen to what he has for you. And your parents can be supportive, but sometimes your parents can say things that are as against the grain of God. But when, especially with my parents, I would say that, they're prayed up and they pray for me a lot. And I know they were in great alignment with me. And so when I told them that, when I expressed that to them, it was a good conversation in the sense of, what I should be prepared for, how supportive they're going to be. And they have been, and again, my dad stepped in, a couple times because of his upbringing. He had a lot of shared experiences with the boys, growing up without a father, those type of emotions, those type of feelings. And so he can share that with them that I couldn't. I can only share to them as much as I know. And so so it really helps. So that conversation initially was nerve-wracking, don't get me wrong. It was like, how do I tell my parents this is what I want to do? I don't have wife and kids yet. How am I expressing? So it was nerve-wracking, but it was also peaceful in a sense of that they're very supportive. And so so I love my parents for that. They're supportive of me. They're always there. They're always checking in on me. And they got me through a lot of moments, and definitely have that support from the parents helps. So that was great.
I love it. So then it makes me think, maybe it's because I've seen too many movies, I don't know, or shows, but did you ever deal with those, you're not my dad, or you don't really care, right? Like, depending on, again, maybe I'm going off of movies, I don't know, but where like the kids unfortunately keep moving from different household to household, right? Where they're looking at like, okay, I'm not going to be here long, or are you really invested in me? So did you ever deal with any of those things? And maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I don't know. I had never
No,
experienced.
brother, you're hitting it right on the nail. Um, it's real because those are real emotions. Um,
Mm,
even as, I mean, even just in my experience of me growing up, in a sense of there was things I hated that my parents were doing, like, why can't I go to this my friend's house, or how come I can't go out, and I hate my parents. Those emotions are just because I'm just a kid, right? And
yeah.
so put that along with being a foster kid. They're
Mm,
having those normal emotions like that.
mm,
But on top of it, because I'm not their blood and I'm not their biological parent,
yeah.
that they would try to find the words, or they will say those words in the sense of, and they never said it in those words like, you're not my dad type of thing. Um, but they will say it in a way where sometimes it hurts, like, dang, man, these kids are brutal, what they say. But it wasn't to a place of um, personal, like, ill intent. It was because they're hurt. They don't know what their emotions, what they're going through.
Yeah.
And so, right now, especially with being part of foster care and
Mm,
being part of these boys' lives, I've seen their roller coaster, mindsets of those type of emotions. And so, and that's why one of the things right now, I'm a big advocate for mental health, because it's a serious thing. And
yeah.
especially as human beings, a lot of our trauma and a lot of our triggers comes from our childhood. And so because we get angry, it's not because of, what happened yesterday. It's because of what happened when we were kids, and we're
Yeah.
never healed from that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that, as they're growing, going through these stages, before I got the boys, they've gone through so much. Honestly, I didn't even know what they'd gone through.
Mm,
Because again, during the training, they say, oh, and we're going to tell you all the things that they've gone through so you can understand these kids. They ain't said none of that. They handed it to me and says, here you go. figure it
Yeah.
out. And
Mm,
so as I've walked this journey with them, when I had them with me, I had to ask these, certain questions about, what they've gone through, and not to the point where it's like, well, what did you do? What happened? It was more like it had to be in those authentic conversations. And there's times, they're telling me for hours and hours, late at night, just talking about what they've gone through, and we're
yeah.
both crying, just crying, bawling, because I just could feel their hurt and their, what they've gone through, and
Yeah.
so knowing that their trauma is and that was one of the things that God actually put on my heart too, is as I was parenting these boys, a lot of things that my triggers, if they're yelling at me or if they say something to me, the first thing I want to do is react like, what'd you say? Like, you know what I mean? Like, hold up, you don't talk to me that way. And so we would have back and forth. I'm just gonna be honest, we would have some cussing battles back and forth, like
Yeah.
we were going at it. And it was to a point where it was like, man, this isn't healthy for me. My blood pressure is going up high. But at the same time, it wasn't healthy for them too as well. So God just put on my heart, it's like, why are you talking to them like that? This is what they're used to. You're
Mm,
Mm.
you're talking to them to what they're used to. He says,
wow.
just talk to them.
Yeah.
So from that day forward, it was that day. It was like, okay, when they're getting these emotional, I didn't react, I responded. And so I started talking to him just like this. And I said, listen, and I talked to him that way. And then they will get so, irate, and and they didn't know how to respond to that, because it was just like, well, he's not reacting to my crazy emotions. How am I supposed to react? And then a lot of times we will kind of separate from that, situation, and then we'll come back and actually have real authentic conversations to a place where we're both apologizing. And I say both because as a parent, we have to apologize. We have
Yes.
to own up to it too. And a lot of times we think, well, I'm the adult and they need to listen. But it's not even about that. It's about what they're experiencing. And
Mhm.
sometimes what we do or what we say will hurt them because or hurt their feelings. And again, it's not your intent, but just say, hey, you know what? I apologize for me coming at you that way. I didn't mean for me to hurt your feelings, because it's about emotions, about their feelings. But you always got to throw that big but in there. It's when we get to this place, we should have conversations like this and not be a place where we're yelling and cussing and doing all this, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so getting to that place, I wouldn't say it wasn't easy, but it was a process, because I had to tell myself certain things too, because there's times where they will say things and it'll boil me up, and of course, as human beings, we react to it. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
so I would say things like, the simple things when, as I was growing up, well, this is my house, get out of my house if you're not going to follow the rules, you know. But again, God was like, they're used to that. Don't say that. Don't
Yeah.
say those things. That's hurtful.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, I don't, this is just me maybe speculating, but like they say those things, like, right? Like they would get into an argument with you maybe because that's what they're used to. So they're expecting you to be like, hey, okay, well, if you don't like it, get out of my house then. And then they're like, oh, okay, this is just an ongoing cycle that I'm just used to. Okay, I'm just going to go to the next house, basically. So,
And you're absolutely right. And I would say that because one of my stories, the first 2 years I got them, that second year I was in the process of actually adopting them. And so I was kind of excited because I had a conversation with all three of them, and they were just like, yeah, this is cool, let's do it. I don't think they really understood it, or me, actually, I didn't really understand what that really meant. But I really want to create a space where they know that I'm not going anywhere. And if I can create this space where they know that this is their home, and that even though I can say something, that they're still going to be in my home, I thought
mhm.
that was a great space, right? But because they're not used to that, um, they would rebel. And at the time, it was a lot of rebellion was doing things to agitate me, to irritate me, whatever it may be. They would do these things, so I can say those things. You know what? I'm not going to go through this process and get out of my life. And that's what I know they wanted me to do. And I put this on my heart all the time, is when I get into these conversations, never say those words, and
Yeah.
never say to a place where I want them out of my life. Like, they would have to make that decision to get out of my house.
Mhm.
And so and I put the pressure more back on them than it was on me, because it's like, you're staying here, you're
Yeah.
gonna go, you're gonna have to, deal with my rules, you're gonna have
Yeah.
to deal with the consequences. And so they would actually do and say things, and you're right, they would say things because, and at the same time, it's not they were doing it because they knew, but at the same time, the emotion was they were probably scared. They were scared of, well, I don't know what this even looks like to have a space where I'm loved. I have a space where it's the foundation is sturdy. I don't know what that looks like. So I'm going to continue to rock the boat and continue to do these things. So I don't have to be in this space, and I can be into this crazy world that I'm used to.
Mm-hmm. Almost
And
like a defense mechanism for
it
them.
is absolutely, absolutely. And at the time, because it was so new to me, it was more, I was taking it personal.
Mm.
Like, well, what are you like? I'm here for you. I'm doing these things. I'm putting all this effort, blah, blah, blah. I'm just, it's about me. It's me, 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 me.
Mm-hmm.
But then when God was like, get over yourself. Like, look, it's not
Mm-hmm.
about you.
Yeah.
It's about these boys. And you're changing their lives, but they have to know it. And it's not about you. Just continue to create the space so they know that the space is there. And so, and don't get me wrong. So there was a time where one of my boys actually left my house for 11 months, and he was older at the time. He was 16, 15, 16 at the time, and he left because he was so rebellious and he was doing these things out of control. But I never said to get out of my house. But he was insisting on it. And he kept telling the social worker, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And because he knew the words to say to the social worker can't say, okay, no, you got to be in this house. You have to be here. They can't force it on him. So they had to go through that process of, okay, what does it look like if you exit the house and all that. So when we sat in a room, with this group of people, and we had a conversation, all these social workers and administrators, whatever you want to call them, they were just like, and they looked at my son. They were just like, well, it looks like this house is a really good house. What is it? Why don't you want to be here? And he didn't have an answer. It was more just like, I just don't want to be here. He was in that space, in that mental space of, I don't know what I'm going through, but I don't
Mm.
want to be in his home because I want to do what I want to do.
Mm.
And so they allowed him to leave. And I looked at my social worker and I said, if you allow him to leave my house, this is going to be tough. So
Yeah.
he has to stay in my house. But he was at that age where he could make that decision.
Yeah.
So they had to just give him that decision. So long and behold, 11 months, he went through, I want to say 3 to 4 foster homes. I think he went to 2 group homes. And on the 10th month, the social worker came back to me and was like, look, we're out of homes. We don't know where to put him. So I try to keep him at my house, but you guys, went through this process. So they were like, well, you're the only one. Do you think you can? I was like, he belongs in my home and he should have been in my home. And so at this time, now I'm more arrogant now in a place where, because I know how the system works now. Now I'm like, you guys are doing all this and trying to cater to the kids, which is okay. I get it, because during the place too, it's just a weird space. But at the same time, it was like they weren't catering to the non high risk kids, as they would call it. He wasn't a high risk kid because he didn't hurt himself. He wasn't doing the crazy drugs, as they will call it. It was just, oh, it's just marijuana. It's whatever. They're fine, which I get it, but it's still not okay at a young
Yeah.
age, and it's not allowed in my home. And I
Yeah.
go, if I get caught with it in my home, if police comes in and it's found in my house, that's on me. My license is done. And
Yeah.
so I told myself, so what did you guys do in this last 10 months that he's been out there? Did you guys get him help? Did you guys? Oh well, I says, well, why do you think him coming back in my home is going to be any better? It's going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
And she was just like, well, we really need a place. I go, that's not a place for me. I go, and I told him, so I gave him a dilemma. I said, listen, if you want to bring him in my home, this is what I need. I go, I need anger management classes. I need therapy. and I need a system that's going to hold them accountable, if that I can take drug tests at the house on my terms. Well,
Mm.
Daniel, I don't know. You know how it is with the court, blah blah blah. You're not going to approve it. I said, well,
Mhm.
then I'm good. Why bring
Yeah.
him into this place? What's going to happen again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she was like, well, let me see what I can do. So it took about 2 meetings. So they try to come back to me. She brought, I think, her other, co-worker, try to come and talk to me about it. And I was like, I'm still on those same terms. This is what
Yeah.
I expect. And I don't expect anything less. And so then in the second meeting, they were just like, oh man, he's really tough. Like, dang. So then the third, actually, after that meeting, the next day, she calls me and says the judge cleared that you can do drug testing and anger management. And actually, they didn't say anger management. They said he had to go to therapy first, and the therapist had to approve him to go to anger management. And so it was just kind of a process. And I was just like, that seems sketchy. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know about that. I go, but at least you guys are trying. I see the effort. I don't want him to get to another home. I do love the kid. I don't want him. I don't want to see him go anywhere else. So if you guys are gonna be supportive of me, then I'm good with it. Then let's bring him back in the house. And so I did. And at this time, I was still having conversations with him. So it wasn't like I just left him out there in the dry. I was still having these conversations, with him, and how to get through things, and just life in general, right? And just loving on him. And when he came back, I had to put the rules down as far as what I expect out of him, and what we need to go through with therapy, all that type of stuff. But again, the system is so shady, and they're so like wishy washy. I no, I don't want to say shady. Let's just say they're more kind of like, they say things to get through it, and just for me to make to say that, okay, let's just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because really, it's just they really didn't follow through with a lot of the things that they said they're going to do. um, and because the therapist, so when kids go into foster care, they are actually recommended to go to therapy.
Mm.
And the sad thing about it, is it's medical. Okay, so it's, I don't want to call it the lower end of healthcare, but it's one of those ones where these therapists that are doing therapy with them, once they're like young, they just got out of school, they're getting right into it, and then once they get a better job or a better opportunity, they're out. They're like, all right, see you later. I'm going to a bigger, better opportunity. So when I first got the boys the first year, we went through at least 3 to 4 therapists in the first year,
Wow.
different therapists.
Wow.
My youngest was like, look, I ain't doing it no more. I'm done. Like, I tell
Yeah.
my story, and then the next one, this one's gone, and then I tell them again, then the other one's gone. I don't want to say it no more.
Yeah.
What do I say? What do I do? So at that time, I was supportive of him. Like, I get it. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everybody's like, they got to go to therapy. So he would sit through therapy, not say nothing. He'll sit the whole hour, just be like,
And you'll
chilling.
be gone.
Yeah. And so it's sad because this is an opportunity to actually pour into these kids and provide those techniques and help. But when the system and when these resources are in and out and it's not stable, they're already going through an unstable life. And now you got therapists that's not stable for them. Who can they
Yeah.
trust?
Yeah. It's almost like opening up that same wound and repeating that same cycle that they're already used to.
Absolutely. So it was definitely a struggle with that. And um, so with all that, therapy and trying to get these boys the right help and the resources, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle in the sense of you really had to be an advocate for it. And
Mm.
so and this was like for me, I'm a big advocate for mental health because all 3 of my boys, they have 3 different personalities. And you guys, with your kids, you guys can probably attest to all the different personalities, and to try to cater to those different personalities. And especially like for me, I'm more of a sports guy. Um, but I also love music and I love, stuff like that. So one of them is all into sports, other one is into gaming, and the other one is into like entertainment, so singing, all that.
Yeah.
So those 3 different aspects of things, I was taking one to baseball practice, other one I'm taking the singing classes, another one I'm taking over here to coding. It was just like all these things. And I got, all right, I'm dropping you off, if I'm late, just wait outside until I come back. And so it was just one of those ones where I'm going back and forth. I'm doing a lot of running around, but it was all for them. It was all for them. And so that was my thing, though. I really tapped into what their strengths are, what they're interested in. And I try to tap into that because, I wanted them all to play basketball, right? But they weren't interested in basketball. And so actually, none of them were interested in basketball when I got them. And so, my youngest was actually a very talented baseball player. And so I had him in, the regular, the pony league or whatever you call it. But he was actually really good. I was like, man, you should be going to that some travel ball. Like, you got some real skills. And he did. We got him into that. So that put him to that level. But he was so talented that it was nothing for him. Like, he didn't work for it. Going to batting cages, it was like whatever. He could literally throw somebody out from outfield to first base. Like, he had an arm. But the thing it was like whatever to him. And so at the time, I was actually ending coaching basketball. And so I was just ending my season. And so when he saw that, he saw the atmosphere, he saw the energy, he said he loved it. So he started playing basketball at school. And at this time, I didn't know. So he started playing basketball at school. And then he's like, hey, I want to play in the Park and Rec. Can I play for the Park and Rec? And I was like, oh, okay. You want to play basketball? I bet you're a baseball guy. So put him in the basketball, and he played it, and he loved it. And next thing you know, he wanted to tap into travel ball. And as a coach, this is not as a dad, this is as a coach. I'm like, I'm like, you got a lot of work. And I said, if you really want to play ball, I can get you all the trainers, I can get you all this training, all that. I go, but it don't mean nothing if you don't really want to do it. I go, so if you're gonna do it, because at the time I was dragging him to baseball practice. He was forgetting his helmet, his glove. Where's your baseball stuff? Come on, practice starts. We gotta leave. Get your stuff. And he was so I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this kid? He loves baseball, but he doesn't want to play. And so when I told him about basketball, I was like, look, I'm not dragging you to practice. You got to tell me what times practice are. Your game, all those, you got to let me know. Because I was putting that pressure because it was like, look, we were doing baseball and you were doing this. I'm not going to go to basketball. I'm going to do the same thing. And I have a lot of networking and resources that you can get into, but I'm not going to tap into that if you're not serious. But he really got into it. And so that was exciting. But at the same time, because that was something that I liked and he liked, now the other two feel a certain way, right? Now they're almost going to play sports. You like him more. You're always hanging out with him. You're doing more things with him. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, this is what he wants. But they see it in a different lens. And so as much as I was trying to defend myself, I had to also look at it in their lens like, okay, I see where you're coming from. But it wasn't that easy. Like, I processed that easy. It was kind of like, man, y'all just bitter. Y'all just, I do all of this for you guys. But at the same time, understanding that, kids, even brothers, sisters, right? They're going to feel a certain way. They're going to know or see, oh, he's playing favorites. He does this for them. He does that for them. But then there was some, as they got older, I had some real authentic conversations about them. It says, look, I did these things for you too. And when I kind of broke it down to them like that, they were just like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way, And they really kind of see the lens like, I'm doing this for all three of you. I have the same rules. I have the same things. Just because I watch basketball when I get home, just because I watch basketball before I go to work, no, I was kidding. But I watch basketball a lot, right? Doesn't mean that I spend more time with him in the sense of because he likes basketball, he's my favorite. It's just because this is what he wants to do. And so I try to make them understand that to the other two, to make them understand it's like, look, I'm catering to whatever I'm supporting you too. You want a game, you want to do coding, you want to do, I was taking him to classes and all those things to get him into all that. The singing classes, the singing competitions, having the guitar and all these, the keyboard. That was an exciting time. And so, but you have to also understand tapping into those personalities that even though as we're seeing it a certain way, especially as parents, that
Yeah.
we're seeing, oh, we're doing it for all the kids, they're going to look at it in a different lens. And a lot of times they're going to say, man, that's his favorite, or he does this a lot with them, or you always give him this and you always give him that. It's like, no, because he got good grades and that's why he has a phone, or because he did this is why he had it. You ain't did it, so that's why you ain't getting it. You know, there's rules all around.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important to what you're saying is very true. I think what it is, like you said, gaming, singing, right? For the other boys, is like, even though like basketball is your thing, but just making sure as parents we're showing interest in that too, right? So it's like, oh, what game is this? Matter of fact, hey, let me play you on the game, right? Or oh, like, yeah, I don't really sing or whatever, but oh man, I heard this new album, right? Or this new movie or whatever they're into. Like you're saying, just like it might look different, but just for them, I think a lot of times it's just more so because, like you said, hey, I'm taking them here, I'm taking them there, and as parents, we're doing the things. But I think at times, even though they don't want to admit it, because they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, dad or mom, right? But
exactly.
at the same time, I think they like the fact that we're engaged. Like they might downplay it, like they're paying attention, they're just on their phone the whole time. You know what I mean? But they're going to remember, oh yeah, you know what? Dad was asking me about the latest game, and I remember, even though he got it wrong, like he didn't. It's the third one's coming out. He's talking about the second one, right? But whatever it is, like you
Oh,
making
you're
that
so
attempt.
behind. You're so behind.
Yeah, you're so they upgraded, Dad. Come on, like
Exactly.
But I think
Exactly.
those little small things help um make the kid feel like, okay, they care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's important because, and even though that we don't like something, so like water polo, I had no clue what water polo is. Like I didn't watch it a day in my life. I don't even know what the rules are. Like if they score through the net, is that 1 point? I don't even know, right?
Yeah.
But I was so interested in making sure he enjoyed whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so, like even with singing or even with gaming, I was a gamer back when I was, when I was in high school and back in the '90s. But now it's like I haven't touched a joystick or whatever you call those things now, a game stick, whatever. I haven't touched forever. I grew up with Madden and NBA Live, all those things. So when I get to play them, like now I couldn't even those shooting games. Oh my god, I said, look, I can't. I get a headache just watching this thing. I
Yeah.
can't even.
It's
I don't know.
true.
Watch my gun spinning around, looking upwards. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, but as long as you are engaged, or even just sit there and watch them play video games, because that's what I did too. I would just sit there and watch them.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I only sat there and watched them because it was actually I had the games in my living room right next to the TV, so I was like, oh, I see what you guys did there, and but as long as they know that you're there and you're actually paying attention, it is important.
Yeah.
And it's important. You just got to tap into what they're interested in. And I think that's another thing too. We get so caught up, and I say we as in parents or society, that we get caught up in it has to be done this way or it has to look like this. And so when your kid is interested in something that you're not really aware of or don't even understand what it is, that doesn't mean to knock it, but really tap into it and really tap into what they like, you
Yeah.
know? And sometimes, even as dads, if your kid or if your boy is interested in something that it's totally opposite of the masculinity of a man, what do you do? You still got to be supportive. That's your son. Same thing as if your daughter is interested in something that's more masculine, or into sports because you like it. But as a mom, what do you do? Like, oh, I want them to be a ballerina. What does that even look like? My thing is be supportive of those kids' interest. Because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is these kids are going to remember that. And as long as you support them, it's going to help them and guide them throughout life. And so, and that's where kind of like my thought process of raising these boys was tap into what they're interested in. And even though that we struggle emotionally, mentally, or what we got to go through, you still want to tap into those, their interests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I know, man. I can keep going on, man. I can keep talking about this. I love it. I love it. I know people's attention spans,
Hey, no, I love it. I was gonna ask you. I got a couple, just two more questions. Me and wifey. But just like all those different emotions, like you said, those different emotional roller coasters, right? Like, I I guess what was the biggest challenge? Like you list a few already, but is there one in particular that sticks out, or maybe one you already mentioned? And then how did you just overcome that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it is. And I would say more tapping into my experience, the roller coaster of trying and more being more of trying to please each one of them um, was kind of my emotional roller coaster because I want the best of them, for them. And regardless of they got the the short end of the straw, that I still want them to have the best experience of a childhood as they can.
Yeah.
And so I always want to tap into all of them. And I think that was really kind of a emotional struggle because sometimes I lay my head on the pillow and it's just like, man, how could I have done this better, or what could I have done? But I think really, there's a lot of moments I had with these boys, but I wouldn't call it moments in the sense of it was bad or it was it was issues, because it was more of a journey. And as we're going through this journey, we're learning it together. And that's what I was trying to teach them, is like, we're learning this together,
Yeah.
even though that we're trying to work through it, even though I'm trying to work through my mental issues that I have, that is not as magnified as everybody else's, but I still go through things, right? And so my thing was, how do we get through this journey and learn together? Because even as parents, we don't know everything. There's no perfect parent, because there's no
Yeah.
such thing as that, right? And so as we're learning to guide our kids, is we just got to provide the best support. And also, the main thing for me was showing them that I'm there to support them, but love. And I think when
Mhm.
they can feel that love, that energy of love, and they understand that stability, all those things, even to this day, my oldest is, just turned 21 in July. He's still calling me, asking for advice and just
Yeah.
talking, and it's because he knows I'm there for him.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what it's about. So it's definitely an emotional roller coaster in the process of foster care, adopting, any of that. It's definitely an emotional roller coaster. But I would say the biggest thing to add to all of that is just continue to be consistent with your love and the support.
Mm. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's
I
good.
like that. So, um, I guess my last question to close it out is, what advice would you give someone that is basically just thinking about adopting or fostering, or just basically experiencing some of the things you experience and that whole journey, like what, because they do have a big heart, right? They do have a big heart where they want to basically blend families in a way, right?
Yeah.
So what advice, I guess, would you give?
Man, that's good. That's a good question. My thing was, and what really helped me was staying prayed up, and
Mm,
that is no lie. Like,
yeah.
just you just gotta have that support from him, because if you know you're doing it for the right reasons, um, going through all the struggles, and you can go back to that and know
Yeah.
the reason why you're doing it, it makes it easier to get through it, because you're
Yeah.
gonna have those moments and you're just like, I'm done. I can't do it no
Yeah.
more. Because I'm gonna be honest, I had those moments.
Yeah.
But when you're in a place where, okay, why did I do this? And you look back at that, it helps you get through that. And
Yeah.
so stay prayed up, stay grounded. A good support system is key. If you can
Yeah.
have that family and friend support, amazing. It's
Yeah.
important. But at the same time, church too, that church support for me, especially, can tap into my boys, the youth leaders there. And even to this day, they still tap into them,
Yeah.
which is awesome, which is amazing. So that support system is, I would say, is important. But yeah, so if you're thinking of doing it, really go through it. This is not a money making business. So if you're
Yeah.
going for money, stop. I'm gonna stop you
Yeah.
there. Don't
Yeah.
do it. Don't
Make
do
sure
it.
you're
Don't
doing
do
it for
it.
the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Right
And then
reasons.
at the same time, it's um, understand that it's not easy. Like, the system isn't the best system. So if you also go in there with that mindset, like, they're not really there to guide you through every single situation, you got to be your biggest advocate on what the kids need. And you got to advocate for them for their health, I didn't even tell you tap into stories about that type of things.
Yeah.
But you also got to understand what the needs are for the kids, because especially with the Medi-Cal, that system, they just want to just medicine, 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 medicine. And so you really have to know what the medicine they're trying to prescribe and what is really for. Because at the end of the day, when I first got my youngest one, and I'm just gonna say this, he was stuttering, like hardcore. Like it
Yeah.
was to the point where his eyes rolled back, everything, right? And they kept saying, "Oh, he needs this, he needs that, he needs to get this, and he needs all this." And so I used to stutter when I was a kid. So I used to tell him, I said, "Listen, relax." I gave him tips. Within maybe a month, whatever it may be, I don't know how long it took, but next I was like, "Wait, you're not even stuttering anymore." And then it was just like it wasn't even a thought. So like it was a thing back then where like we look back to that, I was like, dang, I remember he used to stutter hard, and now he doesn't even do that. But the doctors want to prescribe him all these things, and I'm just like, it's stuttering, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
So be an advocate for the boys, or for if you're going to go into foster care, be an advocate for everything, which is mental health, the doctors, all of that stuff, the system, the social workers. If you don't feel as if they're supporting you, try to find some resources. There's a lot of people out there. Hit me up if you have some questions. I'm all in to help out, to even encourage, and I highly encourage people, if you are thinking of it, go ahead and go into foster care. I would say the only thing you would have to say is foster care. You have to understand that foster care, when you get kids, you can get them, and then the kids can actually exit your home too, because they can reunite with their family. So fortunate for me, my boys were actually stayed with me, and I only say fortunate just because I didn't have to go through that stress. It's unfortunate for them because they weren't able to go back to their families, but in a sense of I didn't have to deal with that mental, kind of roller coaster as well. But just understand, if you are going to foster care, that is a situation that you may have to get into too as well. Okay, so understand that too.
And that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That is. That's a whole nother.
Man, but no, I appreciate you so much, man. So many different gems. So, man, I'm taking notes myself. Like, okay, let me just.
Cool.
But real quick too, guys, because I told you guys he had some stuff he wanted to share. So I'm gonna give you the floor, Daniel. To let the people know what's going on.
Yeah. So this is exciting, man. Appreciate you giving me the space. God put on my heart to actually write a book. How nerve-wracking is that? I don't even know what that even looks like, but there was a lot of confirmation, and there's a lot of things that God put in place where it says, hey, this is what I want you to do. And this was the first step. So the first step was actually sharing my story. So Sean, Tiffany, I appreciate it, to give me the floor and share my story, because I do understand that a lot of people are interested into this, and to actually understand what real conversations and real authentic experiences. Because if you look at a lot of stories now, a lot of it is, oh yeah, join foster care, it's gonna bless the kids, and it's like, they're gonna bless you. As much as we're gonna be there for them, if you're going in for the right reasons, they're gonna bless you. My lens has changed in the perspective of this world, and it's just it brought a lot of light to me. So I love my boys, I love them. If you guys ever listen to this, and I just want to tap into that. So follow me on Instagram. I'm going to start tapping into a lot of stories and a lot of storytelling there, because I don't know what it looks like as far as writing this book. I've never owned a book. I'm not an author, I don't write. But I think to share my experiences on social media as I'm writing the book, I think that's also awesome too. I think that's going to be a fun experience too. And so if you guys want to be a part of that and want to join that,
plug in your Instagram.
Yeah. My plug. Got to plug it in. So it's actually at DWG _ and then those initials is my name. I named myself for a long time is DWG. Okay. So it's DEEDUBGEE. So dub as in the W, right? Because you know we from the West Coast, right? So again, our Instagram is DWG_DEEDUBGEE. That's what it is. Follow.
Cool. Make sure y'all follow on there. And I think you're gonna do a podcast too, right? Is that what you're
There
thinking
it
about?
is. That's it right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, you know what? It's probably all those things will tie in.
Okay.
I'm gonna take
Okay.
one thing at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know the podcast was something that was also on my heart too to
Yeah.
do, and but I do want to stay focused because I know
Yeah.
I can get all these ideas, I do all these things, I get excited
I like
about it. But I do want to tap into first. I want to put out this book, and I want to share my experiences. And it's gonna be more about the parent side of it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sharing that part of it of what I've been through and the experiences, and just to help people get through that too as well.
Well, if it's anything close to this amazing content, I already know it's gonna be something ridiculous because this is only like for you guys that's listening, this is only a tip of the iceberg
You're
of
right.
so many different gems, so many stories, so many different things that I know will bless y'all, will be helpful for y'all. So I definitely encourage you guys to check it out when he does drop that book. I'm for sure I'm getting a copy for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
For sure. But yeah, man, I appreciate you again. And like always, guys, before we go, I want to remind you parents to keep being an inspiration. Never downplay the impact that you have for your loved ones so you can conquer the chaos. See you guys.
Yeah.